Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we dive into an important conversation about human responsibility and the unfolding truth. Big thanks to our viewers and subscribers for standing with us. Human responsibility in the unfolding of truth. We shall not be accepted and honored of God in doing the same work that our fathers did. We do not occupy the position which they occupied in the unfolding truth. This is a very important spiritual principle. It is deeper than mere historical progress. Let's walk through why this must be so, step by step, in a way that makes it plain. We shall not be accepted and honored of God in doing the same work that our fathers did. We do not occupy the position which they occupied in the unfolding truth. In order to be accepted and honored as they were, we must improve the light which shines upon us as they improved that which shone upon them. We must do as they would have done had they lived in our day. Luther and the Wesley brothers were reformers in their time. It is our duty to continue the work of reform. If we neglect to heed the light, it will become darkness, and the degree of darkness will be proportionate to the light rejected. Spirit of Prophecy, Volume 4, page 186 by Ellen G. White. What God, through Ellen White, is saying is that we are not called to repeat the work of those before us. Our place in the unfolding truth is different, and to be accepted as they were, we must grow in the light given to us. As they followed the light in their time, we are to follow it in ours. Reformers like Luther and the Wesley brothers served faithfully in their day. Now, the work continues with us. Ignoring the light turns it into darkness, and the darkness deepens with every truth we refuse. God responds to people based on the light given to them. God does not judge people by the total amount of truth that exists in the universe, but by the truth made available to them. Unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall much be required. Luke chapter 12, verse 48. Luther and the Wesley brothers were faithful to the light they had. They stood against powerful error, followed conscience at great cost, and advanced truth as far as God revealed it to them. They could not be held responsible for light not yet revealed. Truth unfolds because God renews, not rewinds. In other words, truth is progressive because God is restoring, not simply repeating. The Reformation was not meant to be a museum, but a movement. God's purpose is restoration, bringing his people step by step back into harmony with his character, which requires progressive light, not stagnation. If later believers simply repeat earlier reforms without advancing, they actually fall behind because God has continued to speak. Under the Old Covenant, he led ancient Israel out of Egypt through Moses. And under the New Covenant, he is leading spiritual Israel out of spiritual Egypt through Elijah. As he spoke to the Israelites back then through Moses, so today is God speaking to us through Elijah, whose testimony will take us across the River Jordan and into the promised land. To stop advancing is not neutrality, it is retreat. This is why God, through Ellen White, says that we cannot be accepted and honored by God if we merely do the same work our pioneers and the reformers did. With new understanding comes new duty. Responsibility grows with revelation. Our forefathers obeyed partial light, but we are called to obey greater light. When God increases light, obedience must deepen, faith must become more intelligent, love must mature, and reform must continue inwardly as well as outwardly. To refuse increased light is not innocent ignorance, it is resistance to God's present voice. Why rejected light becomes darkness. Light is not neutral information. It is relational truth. When God gives light, He is inviting trust, humility, and obedience. Rejecting it hardens the heart. That is why Jesus said, "If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness?" Matthew chapter 6, verse 23. The very truth meant to free the soul becomes the measure of its blindness when rejected. Why the darkness is proportionate to the light rejected. This is the most searching part. The more light a person has, the clearer the call, the stronger the conviction, and the greater the resistance required to refuse it. Resistance shapes the conscience. Thus, little light rejected leads to a little darkness. Great light rejected leads to great darkness. This is not punishment from God, it is moral cause and effect. Continuing the path they would walk now. Luther and Wesley were not great because of their doctrines, but because of how they related to truth. They followed the light as it unfolded. They stood alone when necessary. They allowed truth to reform life and church. And they valued obedience over safety. If they lived today, they would not freeze at their 16th or 18th century understanding. They would press forward. To honor them truly, we must imitate their spirit, not merely quote their conclusions. Key idea. The core principle in one sentence is that God honors faithfulness to present truth, not loyalty to past light. That is why doing only what our fathers did cannot receive the same approval, because it would be less faithfulness, not equal faithfulness, in a time of greater revelation. Why this is actually good news. This principle means God is fair. God is patient. God is actively leading his people. No generation is locked into spiritual stagnation. It also means the greatest danger is not persecution, but comfort with yesterday's light.